Warning, this is data and dissonance. Unfiltered, unapologetic, and absolutely not afraid to say the quiet part out loud. If you came here looking for sanitized headlines or polite sound bites, you're in the wrong place. Tonight we're taking the gloves off on Trump's push to put the National Guard on the streets of New Orleans. Fair warning, if you can't handle sharp edges and strong opinions, best scroll on now.
President Trump wants to send the National Guard into New Orleans. Governor Jeff Landry is nodding along, while city officials are pumping the brakes, pointing out that crime is already falling without troops on every corner. This isn't just about patrols and crime stats. It's about power, perception, and who really runs the streets of Louisiana's crown jewel. Tonight, we break it all down. The law, the politics, the reality on the ground, and what it means for the people who actually live there. All right, let's set the table. I'm Artie. Cajun born, Cajun raised, and I've seen these debates from both sides of the microphone. For me, this isn't just politics, it's personal. I know these streets, I know these people, and I know what it feels like when DC turns your home into a headline. Tonight, I'm not just steering the ship, I'm in this conversation with both feet planted. Next up, Brian, the unapologetic MAGA heartbeat of this table. He's the guy who cheers when Trump plays hardball because he sees it as strength in a world gone soft. For Brian, sending in the Guard isn't a question of if, but why it hasn't been done already. Law, order, and a little fire in the belly. That's Brian's lane. Rachel's here too, and she brings that independent edge that cuts through the noise. She's the one pulling up the data, fact-checking the talking points, and asking whether we're solving problems or just staging theater. Rachel's not anti-law and order, but she'll call it out when politics trumps practicality. Then there's Daniel, our resident conspiracy theorist, the guy who looks at every headline and asks, okay, but who benefits? He's the one with the pins, the strings, and the theory that what looks like policy is usually a power play. Tonight, he's watching how Trump, Landry, and the local establishment use New Orleans as a chessboard. And rounding it out, Skylar, our newest voice at the table, coming from the Progressive and Green Party perspective. Skylar keeps us grounded in civil liberties, long-term impacts, and the view that public safety isn't just about soldiers on corners, but trust built between communities and the people sworn to protect them. Tonight's episode is fueled by the Caleb Rourke thriller series. The Covenant Protocol and the Prophet Directive are out now, with Black Echo Rising dropping December 2025. If you like your politics dark and your action sharp, grab them on Amazon today. Fuel up with our High Lakes light, Rock Creek medium, and Bitterroot dark coffee roasts, plus the Gen mugs and hoodies. Grab yours here. Data and dissonance.printify.me. Here's the setup. Trump floated, sending the National Guard to New Orleans after deploying to DC and threatening Chicago and Baltimore. Landry says he'd welcome help, including for Shreveport. But the NOPD says violent crime and homicides are way down this year. Chief Ann Kirkpatrick says she'll work with any federal partners, but sees Guard deployment as an extreme stopgap compared to the city's ongoing precision policing. And historically, yes, the Guard patrolled post-Katrina under Task Force Gator from 2005 to 2009. So, is this necessary force or unnecessary theater? Start with the big question. Can Trump do this, and should he? Governors control their Guard under state status. Federalizing troops triggers posse comitatus constraints unless you invoke the Insurrection Act. A judge just slapped the LA deployment as illegal. The admin is appealing. Landry doesn't even need DC to put Louisiana Guard on New Orleans streets. What's the clean, lawful path that still shows strength?
This is simple. Restore order fast. If the governor's on board, the cleanest path is state activation, bypass the DC court fight, back the cops, surge manpower, and make carjackers and cartel runners sweat. Federalizing Guards should be the last resort, but even then the law allows it if local authorities can't or won't keep order. People want safety tonight, not white papers tomorrow.
So your plan is boots now, briefs later. Got it. Counter that. Legally possible isn't the same as smart. New Orleans isn't burning, and the numbers say the trend line is down fast. Do we risk militarizing a city that's finally stabilizing?
Exactly. The NOPD reports murders down approximately 34% YTD, and if you exclude the January 1st mass casualty terror attack, it's a approximately 61% drop versus last year at this point. Weekly dashboards show shootings and carjackings at multi-year lows. You don't march in troops when the curve is bending the right way. You invest in what's working: targeted enforcement, better clearance rates, and community trust.
Thread the power angle. Trump's picking a Dem-led city in a red state. Fewer blue state roadblocks, bigger optics. Strategic pressure play?
It's classic leverage politics. Chicago and Baltimore push back. New Orleans sits inside Landry's Louisiana. So the White House tests a friendlier legal terrain and dares City Hall to say no while the governor says yes. Win either way. If troops go, Trump claims the fix. If not, he paints local leaders as soft on crime.
Civil liberties check. Guard patrols can look like occupation. Where's the line?
The line is clear rules of engagement. Under state control, guard can assist, perimeters, presence, logistics, not routine policing or street stops. You also need sunset clauses and metrics. If crime doesn't drop more than the ongoing trend, you stand down. Otherwise, you normalize something that should stay extraordinary.
Let's fight the over/under. New Orleans homicides spiked in 2022, fell in 2023 to 2024, and are down again in 2025. Local TV is reporting historic declines and multi-agency gun/drug takedowns just last week. Meanwhile, statewide violent crime is still high, especially outside NOLA, which Landry points to in welcoming help. So is the guard a scalpel or a sledgehammer?
You surge, you lock down hot corridors, and you advertise consequences. Pair guard presence with NOPD task forces and DAS, who prosecute. You'll see immediate deterrence. We did post-Katrina, we can do it again.
So you're saying bring back the berets. Careful, Rachel keeps score. Your rebuttal with receipts?
Post-Katrina was a disaster context. Task Force Gator filled a vacuum. Today isn't that. The NOPD chief herself calls guard an extreme stopgap and prefers durable fixes. Staffing, tech, focused deterrence. If you yank the fire alarm during a cooldown, you risk civil-military creep and you hand the feds a photo op when locals have earned the gains.
Optics and outcomes?
Optics, Oval Office podium. 2 weeks to straighten it out. That's a headline. Outcomes: if numbers were still climbing, a surge might bend the curve. But the curve is already bending. So the marginal benefit is smaller, while the political cost is bigger. Axios.
Public mood?
Split country. CBS polling shows Americans are divided on whether guard deployments help or harm rights. If you go in, you'd better bring transparency, body cams, and community liaisons, or you harden distrust.
Last lap? If you had the pen, what do you sign tonight?
State-activated guard, limited duration, clear mission support, perimeters at known hotspots, protect critical infrastructure, backup warrant teams. Pair it with high-visibility ops that take guns and repeat offenders off the street. Put Landry and Kirkpatrick on the same podium and announce it like a unified front.
Skip the troops. Double down on what's working. Precision policing, violent offender focus, ATF/USMS partnerships, court throughput. Publish weekly dashboards and an independent audit of stops, searches, and uses of force. If the metrics stall for 60 to 90 days, then consider a narrow guard assist.
Exploit politics for the city's gain. Tell DC you want to win. Fund tech, staffing, and witness protection. We'll call it the New Orleans Safety Compact. If they insist on troops, demand sunset, scope, and stats in writing.
Codify civil liberty guardrails. No street-level stops by guard, no mission creep, mandatory community briefings, and a public scorecard each week showing exactly what the deployment accomplished compared to the pre-trend.
All right, crew, final thoughts?
Let's not sugarcoat it. New Orleans needs help. Maybe the stats look better on paper, but people don't live on paper. They live in neighborhoods where bullets fly, where break-ins happen, and where fear still stalks the block. If the Guard can give families one night where they sleep easier, then I say it's worth it. We've spent too long waiting on reforms that crawl at a snail's pace. Sometimes you need the blunt instrument because criminals don't respond to polite requests.
I hear you, Brian, but safety has to be durable, not a quick fix. If crime is trending down, you don't throw troops into the mix just to prove a political point. You shore up what's working. The targeted arrests, the community partnerships, the data-driven policing. If you bring in the Guard, you risk undermining the very progress that New Orleans fought to achieve. I want safety too, but I want it in a way that lasts longer than a news cycle.
What I see is a power play. Trump gets to look tough, Landry gets to look cooperative, and the people of New Orleans get to be the backdrop. Don't get me wrong, Guard deployments can work in the short term, but ask yourself, who benefits from the spectacle? The governor gets federal cover, the White House gets another notch on the belt, and the people? They get soldiers on corners and headlines about how their city is out of control. This is less about safety and more about stagecraft.
For me, it's about precedent. Once you normalize Guard deployments for policing, where does it stop? Today it's New Orleans. Tomorrow it's any city that doesn't fit the White House narrative. Public trust is fragile, and if people feel occupied rather than protected, you set back years of community progress. If the Guard is truly necessary, it should come with ironclad limits, scope, duration, and transparency. Otherwise, you risk trading temporary quiet for long-term division.
Here's where I land. I know these streets. I've walked them, lived them, celebrated on them, and mourned on them. This isn't just about politics. It's about people. If the Guard comes in, it better not be a photo op. It better not be a headline grab. It better be about protecting families, about real results, and about respecting the work already being done by the men and women of the NOPD. Because this city has clawed its way back before, and it doesn't need to be someone else's prop to do it again. New Orleans deserves safety, but it also deserves dignity. And that's the line for me. Speak truth. Stir thought.